Okay, today I'm going to make a video showing how I make this small detail scraper. I made this scraper about 8 years ago, and the reason I made it is because a lot of times larger scrapers for delicate work, they're just too big and clumsy, and you can't really get a sense for where you're putting the pressure on a big wide blade like this. First of all, I don't really ever use a scraper like this anymore. It's just too big. Even if I'm scraping an entire hull side or deck, I really like these, and I made videos in the past talking about these scrapers. They're inexpensive. It's a Craftsman scraper. You can get them at Sears. I think it's $5 or $6 for this, but it's got a real good feel to it. The blade's probably only an inch wide. Yeah, it's an inch. And the replacement blades are $1.49 for 2 of them. That's 4 cutting edges. And the blades, they've got a slight arc on them like most scrapers do. Every time you sharpen it, you just sharpen along that angle and try to maintain that arc. So I really like these scrapers, but even these scrapers in real tight spots, it's like if you're working on a piece of 1/2 inch stock. Here, I've got this piece of wood here, this plank from a boat. This is what I'm going to show you when I get done making this scraper. If you're working on cleaning this up and you have this is a 1/2 inch plank and you have a surface to the side like this, even this scraper, the tendency is to put a little bit too much pressure on the edge and then you roll that edge. Well, there's a lot of times when you need to replace a plank, and this is a varnish plank. You want to maintain this crisp edge right here, and that's what I'm going to show you on the 22-foot Continental. When I get done making this, I'm going to show how I scrape that a little bit. But I wouldn't use this scraper. I would use the one that I made up, but it's time to put a new blade on this one. So I'm going to show you how I do that. Now, I replace this blade about once a year. The last time I did it, I couldn't find the blades that I used to use to cut down to install on this. And this is what they look like. They were for the smaller scrapers, like this here. And what I do is, I utilize the hole pattern that they have, but the hole pattern changed. So now, I'm gonna modify these Craftsman scraper blades that I like. They're the same length as the other ones, but the holes are too big. And the last time I replaced this one, I just modified. I probably just took one like this and cut it and drilled a few holes in it. But you can see there's no hook, there's no edge on that anymore. It's ground right down, so it's time to replace it. So I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to take and cut this scraper blade down and just mount it on here. It's pretty simple to do. This is a handle I had for about 8 years. It's made out of teak, actually. I used to work at a boatyard over on Harson's Island called W.C. Beardsley, great company. And I worked there for about 5 years, and we had a bunch of scrap and stuff, so I just used this. But this scraper has a really nice feel to it. That's why I like it. So I'm going to show you how to make this up. The first step, I've got to cut this down. I'm going to utilize this hole, but I'm going to cut this a 1/2 inch wide, so I have to cut both sides. So I have some 1/2 inch tape here. I'm just going to run that down the middle and then take. This is a hardened blade, so you have to use a cutoff wheel, so that's what I'm going to use. So I'll get set up. I'm going to put a strip of tape down here, so that'll give me my boundary. I'm going to put it in the vise and cut the width of this first. So that's what I'll do first, and then I'll show you how I mount it on this. Okay? Okay, I have the blade in the vise, and I have the 1/2 inch tape on there, and I'm just going to cut right down this line here. I've got a cutoff wheel and a Dremel. Okay, that's one side. I'll stop the camera, do the other side, and clean that up, and then show you what it looks like. Alright? Okay, well I cut both sides off, and then I put it in the vise, and what I did was, I already did most of it, but I took a little bit more material off, getting closer to that line with the cutoff wheel. So I did that because it's easier to take that material off with that cutoff wheel as opposed to the sander that I'm going to take it to now. So there's both sides, and I'm going to take it over to the sander and just grind it a little bit more so it's a nice straight line, or pretty close to straight. Okay? Okay, now I have the sander set up. Now I straighten the line out. Alright, here's what the blade looks like. The sides are pretty straight and they look parallel. Close enough anyway. And that's how that's going to be mounted on the end of the handle. I'm going to utilize that middle hole. But there's another hole back here that's about 7/16 away. So I have to drill 2 holes into this. Now this is hard material, but it can be done. So I've got to lay out a hole here and here. That way, when I put this on, I could use this edge for a while, and when that's all the way ground down, I could flip it over and use the other edge. So that's the next step. I'm going to lay out a spot for 2 holes. I'm going to take it over to the drill press and drill those, okay? Okay, I have the blade in a cross slide vise, and I have it clamped down, and I just sharpened this drill bit on my drill doctor, so we're going to give her a go. I have the RPMs down low. I'm just going to take it slow until it bites. This is hard material, but on small stuff like this, it will drill it. There it is. Looks like it's it. See, now it looks like it doled out that quick. It started to anyway, so for small stuff it will work. So I'll stop the camera and start it back up on the bench, okay? Alright, now that the holes are drilled, it's time to mount the blade to the handle. And if you notice, when I was drilling that out, the bit went through the first hole just fine. The second hole at the very end, it had a hard time going through, but it did make it. And that's because this drill bit, it dulled out really quick. This hard material just, it's hard on these bits, and the camera really doesn't show it, but it's dull and this bit needs to be sharpened again. So that tells me that a sharp drill bit is good for about 2 holes in this hardened material. But the cool thing is it can be done. I have a drill doctor, so now I'll just put another edge on this bit and it'll be fine. So it's time to mount this blade to the handle. And since this hole here is so big, if I just put a screw in there, it'd be really sloppy. So I went to the hardware store and I got a little washer there. That's a number 2 washer for a number 2 screw, and it happens to fit perfect on that hole there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that in there, and I have another washer to go over that. First I'll put this down, then this washer will go to hold everything down, and I'm going to put the screw in. And I drilled 2 holes in there because when this edge gets dull, I'll be able to spin it right around and use the other edge. So I'll put the other screw in. So we're just about done. I'm going to take it over to the grinder. And as I said before, I've had this handle for 8 years, and the holes have never stripped out in it using these little screws, which kind of surprises me, but it works great. So that's it. That's a scraper. I'm just going to put an edge on it, and then I'm going to take it over to the boat, and I'll show you it in action. So I'm going to stop the camera right now, and I'm going to go just put an edge on this. I'm going to show you how to do that over at the grinding wheel. Okay? Okay, I'm over at the grinding wheel, and I'm going to put an edge on this, even though this is a brand new blade. I usually do that, and I'm just going to freehand it. So I'll turn it on. I fixed my wheel. I made it a little bit straighter. There was the arbor, there was something that was off a little bit, so I messed with it, and this wheel is a little straighter now. So I just kind of look at my angle here. So that's all that's needed, and I try to put just a slight arc on that, like it actually had it from the factory, but I put a little bit of an arc right on that. So that's it. That's all it's needed. It's sharp. Now I'm going to take it over to the boat and show you how it works, okay? Alright, I'm over at the boat, and I'm going to show how that scraper works now. I have to replace this lower hull side plank, and before I do that, I have to clean the plank that it's going to be adjacent to. I have to clean this up. This is where the water line is, and you can see over the years as they painted this water line white, white paint wicked in between the two planks, and it's not smooth, so I have to take and scrape all that off. So I've got some tin foil here. I'm not going to get it, I'm going to use a heat gun, but I'm not going to get it real hot. And this is a half inch ledge here, and here's a full-size scraper. There's no way I would use a scraper like this. It obstructs your view. You can't really see what's going on, and the tendency in a big scraper like this is you're gonna put a little bit too much weight or too much pressure on this outside edge, and that's the edge that you want to remain crisp. I don't really want to do anything to that edge. And even the smaller 1-inch scraper that I use, it's still a little bit too wide, and it doesn't give me a good view and doesn't give me a good feel. That's where this scraper comes in. It's about a 1/2 inch wide. It has a really good feel to it, and this is my go-to scraper on a lot of little detail work like this. So I have my heat gun ready, and I'm just going to show a short clip. So I'm not going to heat this up real hot, I'm just going to get it warm. I could keep the pressure even right across that 1/2 inch edge. So as it's starting to warm up, it comes right off. And I'm not deforming that edge. That's why I like the longer handle. This handle is just about 9 inches long, and with the extension of the blade, it's probably 10 or a little bit over. And then you can just take it over the grinder when it gets dull and sharpen it up. And there's 2 edges on it. So I'll take most of this off, and then I'll take a hardboard, a little hardboard with some sandpaper on it to take the rest of it down. See that white paint that comes right off. Just warm it up a little bit. So there it is in action. Shut this off. So it's not hard to make, and once you have it, it's good for a while, since you have the two cutting edges there. Simple to make and it's inexpensive. So that'll do it. That'll do it for the video on how to make a small detail scraper. All right?